Welcome everyone to Red and Yellow's latest webinar. We're just going to wait a minute or two for a few more attendees to join. I can see the number is going up. In the meantime, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Red and Yellow, we are Africa's leading creative school of business, and it's our mission to train the next generation of change makers, creators, and innovators. But Red and Yellow is also about giving your brand or business tangible and real advice and solutions to whatever your business needs. And one of the ways that we do this is through our interactive webinars, of which you are a part today. So if you know any colleagues or companions or even distant cousins who might benefit from our expert advice, reach out to them and ask them to sign up to our corporate newsletter. They can do this in two ways. You can either head to redandYellow.co.za, navigate to the For Your Business tab, and you should see a pop-up, or you can just email corporatetraining@redandYellow.co.za. That's corporatetraining@redandYellow.co.za. So just going to give it 1 or 2 more minutes before we get started. Okay, so before we get started with today's session, we have a few housekeeping rules just to run through quickly. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please put them into the Q&A dialog box. You'll see that at the bottom of your Zoom panel. Our team will take note of them, and Tamryn will be sent a recording of the session later in the week. So when you receive that, also please feel free to send it on to those who can't join us today, who you know, and who will find it valuable. Two poll questions will be appearing shortly. Okay, while we answer the poll questions, my name is Nick Corbett, and I'm the head of content here at Red and Yellow. I'd like to welcome all of you to our latest webinar, 3 Simple Steps to Skills Development Success, hosted by HR manager Tamryn Hoffman. Now, Tamryn is a professional with countless years of experience in HR, B-BBEE specialist roles, learning So while we all finish our polls, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tamryn to take us through this exciting webinar. Tamryn, over to you.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate that. So today we're going to be chatting a little bit about the simple steps and skills developments and success. And I hope that through this webinar, I'll be able to share a little bit of insights, a bit of data, and sort of some of the trends that are coming up that influence our skills sector at the moment, or the skills development that we have across organizations. So we're going to have a look at who is your skilled workforce beyond 2024. Do you know? That's more a question for you. And an adaptive and integrated skills planning and the skills measurement for a learning culture. So firstly, let's take a look at the first one, which is, your business is linked to the skills of the future. So who is your skilled workforce for beyond 2024? And if we think of the business case around skills development, never has it been more important, or there been a more important time where we could argue the case for skills development within the workforce. We need to consider the agility, the innovation, and the talented sustainability of our workforce beyond 2024, with many, many different factors that influence changes, including that next year we'll fully see all 5 generations within the workforce fully integrated. If we consider some of the compliance as a supporter of our strategies, we know of Skills Development Act and B-BBEE, and in many organizations, those that deal with this aren't always the same person, but it is spread across different roles within the HR department, or it might be a specialist role that is linked to the L&D department, particularly focusing on skills development or a BE specialist. But the challenge actually is how we integrate this into our actual workforce and move away from looking at creating work skills plans, actual training reports, and B-BBEE targets, but really looking at how this legislation can help us and be a supportive of our future strategy. If we look at the workforce that we are going to be integrating into in the very, very near future over the next 5 years, this is very much a move that we need to think about. What are those strategic skills that we would integrate from a business perspective? So what does business look like beyond 2024? And if we consider how L&D has evolved, I'm sure those of you that are involved in L&D and HR will agree that from 15 to 20 years ago, L&D was very much the order taker and delivery mode of departments of anything that had to do with train this, train that, jump in there. And while skills training is so important that we do sometimes need to teach, there are also really important consultative conversations that now take place and shape really that arm of HR and business function that's able to achieve the outcomes of skills development. So your business beyond 2024 is likely to see that your people outcomes for talent retention is really going to be as important as your business outcomes and your financial outcomes. And we need to realize this for our future retention within our businesses. So this does create the move for change and how we integrate across different roles. Traditionally, HR has really been that fundamental driver, but really we see more and more, if businesses haven't moved there already, there really is the HR need to actively seek better integration across the roles, processes, objectives, team metrics, your technologies and systems throughout the organization, creating people leaders who actually drive towards skills development, being part of the strategy and developing those new skills that are not only required to develop for the role, but also for cross-functioning mobility. And this is really important if we consider the Deloitte's Human Capital Trends report from 2023, which indicates some very interesting values, where it showed that 56% of South African respondents claimed that if not half, but all of their workforce would need to change their skills within the next 3 years. And this would be in order for them to remain competitive. And when there were that same group were tested in terms of asking how they felt in terms of their readiness, 58% of those organizations felt that they were prepared to manage the careers of their future talent and future workforce, and also be able to deliver L&D within their space. So this really means that we need to partner more and consult more with those skills that are required for the future. If project-based work is considered as part of a role, that is a development where we can embed new skills or simply dust off old ones that lie on our CVs to be able to provide a variety of interest in the work that we do, allow for scope change for individuals, especially where there is that ceiling and not able to move upwards in the moment. But the transition of skills and mobility of skills across departments and functions is really, really important for the future. So this will obviously lead to us having an adaptive skills planning mechanism. And with all the talk that I'm sure many have been part of around AI, this quote is particularly prevalent, but really does support the need for talent strategy and business strategy, and that it's not something simply that HR can drive, that this has become a much more bigger business case for the workforce, that it requires people managers to very much get involved and drive the metrics for what their skills development would look like. it's as important then as planning for your key performance areas or your metrics that you do for performance. You would want to be engaging with your staff on customized learning plans so that you're able to adapt and build a skills matrix that transitions over time. So even our competency frameworks, these would need to be adapted, and looking forward, what does the business look like in the next 5 years? Are we actually ready for the adaptive skills that we need to have in the future? And again, this will allow for us to have mobility, retaining our talent, and rather finding mechanisms to keep good people within our organization than seeing them leave. Building relationships and skills within our organization that if it happens that they transition elsewhere, that they would always be looking for the next opportunity to return. And that shows in terms of also your people return on investments. So skills measurements for learning culture is one of those that is absolutely prevalent, showing in this space at the moment. If we, as I mentioned earlier, if we drive a culture of learning and we look at it as seriously and equal to driving performance KPIs, it will enable a learning culture that directly links to your strategic metrics and goals. And that will give a positive learning environment for more to benefit from the future and future-proofing not only the individual, but also the organization. So learning plans also need to be customized both for the individual as well as for strategically focused. So assessing the individual, understanding deeply what the individual needs are, but also where your business is going. So the linkages between skills measurements, learning culture, B-BBEE, and skills development planning are not individual instances that happen across our HR calendar throughout the year and business focus, but really they are integrated to achieve those metrics as a result of great learning cultures within the organization. So the trick is actually being serious about the learning and to ensure that we're creating experiences that really make learning sticky. So a person actually, and when I mean sticky, I mean that a person can actually practice these skills, that they go onto an intervention or I'm part of a learnership, that actually they are skills that are really transferable across the organization or within the role that I'm in, but I get to practice those and embed those skills in an environment that is innovative and looking forward towards my development as well as that of the business that I'm in. And it's encouraging because if we look at LinkedIn Workplace Learning Report for 2024, we actually see that those that set career goals and engage in learning 4 times more than those that don't set career goals with learning engagement set with it. So it's quite important that we consider what that means and the opportunity to create a meaningful learning culture within the organization. So building the culture for skills and future for the future easily supports skills development and B-BBEE requirements. That those don't have to be tick box exercises. They're complex in their individual spaces in calculating them. And I have a bonus for you a little bit later if you're interested in the B-BBEE planning. But without really needing to go into those points, you really want to have a plan across your year that integrates and drives the results that you're hoping to achieve. So it's a balanced approach with your budget. And then, of course, challenging the managers around you, challenging people skills to be able to support those across the organization. So in terms of looking at that, I said I've got a bonus for you in terms of your calculator. These are all complex, and generally we find, and in my experience around working with B-BBEE, it has been a space where sometimes people feel a little bit overwhelmed. How do I balance all of these budgets as well as trying to drive particular things, what we can afford, what we can't afford? And I think it's quite encouraging when we look at things like a BE calculator, that we understand that there is a lot of double counting that does happen, but we are able to use that skills development levy as a way in order for us to plan forward. We're also able to tap into some of the skills development funds that we return from our actual training reports and any, of course, of the funding you get from your CETAs. How does that build in? And what are you looking at as your organization as a whole as you future-proof it? So you're thinking about where we have to have a plan for transformation in skills. How does that factor in? So this is quite practical. I did say that I would give you some practical tips on it. But there are different categories, as most of you know, in terms of different skills trainings. And then, of course, what that actually means. So if you've got an example of XYZ Logistics with 2,500 employees, and they have quite a large payroll bill there for 2024, if we want to project how much we can actually consider that spend to be, this could be quite overwhelming to an organization. It says that I really can't afford to spend all of this maximum spend on each element just to be able to achieve points. And that's why I say BE is an absolute catalyst for your strategy. However, it is equally something that shouldn't be the only driving factor. If you're considering what is the budget you can spend, and then how do I spend that, there are ways to achieve that. So if you're looking at your payroll skills development levy, you would say 3.5% of that. So that would be the maximum spend you would get for 6 points on the first element, which is across all programs, everything excluding bursaries. And then, of course, you've got bursary programs. If you were to spend 2.5%, that will give you the maximum of 4 points, and that would give you 4.8 million there. And then you've got people with disability programs, learnerships in particular here, where you would want to spend 0.3%. That value would gain you 4 points. So this kind of gives you a practical look. However, it's important to also know that one program can be counted in more than one area here as well, as I will show you in the next slide. So if we use that same example, and we can continue here with learnerships and apprenticeships and internships, this is based on the number of employees you have. So the points here are slightly different because you're not working on your skills development levy, but you're actually working on your number of employees. So if I have 5% of my employees, if I've got 2,000 employees, that'll give me 6 points. And of course, for learnerships, we calculate how many learnerships do I have to run. Well, then you take your head count and then you can see there what you need to absorb. Absorption is still an individual that has a permanent employment opportunity. And this is where the value of skills comes from. So if you reimagine your skills development beyond B-BBEE requirements, beyond skills development as a process, and you say, I look at my organization and I look at the people that are within my organization, there is room for internal development on learnerships and apprenticeships and internship programs. And of course, I can't get an absorption point for those individuals, but these individuals I could within my organization be skilling differently to be able to cross skill across departments and move up within my organization, whichever learning program that you choose to put the person on, whether that is a learnership. Red and Yellow, we offer some learnerships, whether it's a short course program. You can claim these programs back, whether it's under BE or skills development, and some of that spend does come back to you. At the same time, while you're upskilling your internal workforce and you're wanting to see their mobility and them to move, and that becomes your strategy, you also have to plan for, well, what happens when they move? If I move great talent from within my team, I would want to have great talent that is there to actually replace them. So who are those new entrants that are in my department? And these don't always have to be at an unskilled level or a semi-skilled level. It does depend on what your learning goals are, your type of organization, and who you are actually wanting to upskill. But if you interview and spend the time to really decide who the learners are, considering for one moment what your future talent needs will be, what your future recruitment over the next 12 months would be, and you hire learners for that purpose to fill those spaces, this would be actually more conducive for you to have your new entrants that potentially could be that backfill that you need for talent that moves within your organization. So it's a very close connect with understanding from an HR perspective exactly what the departmental needs are, what the mobility of the people are within the organization, how do they grow, how do they achieve their next and future-proof themselves, whether that's through technology, AI, how that will transform your organization and its needs. Will you need more people? Would you need less people? And then be able to develop your plan knowing that you can actually leverage your compliance factors rather than those being the drivers towards only points. And as we can see, if we move to the next one where I actually show you this in practicality, I've just used a simple name of Jack. He's an African male who's been appointed to a learnership. This is important for us to know what kind of program and who he is. And he is unemployed and he has a disability. So now if you look at these stars that I've put there, the stars next to each point, and if you take and consider the training cost, what you're going to spend in terms of his monthly stipend, because this is a learnership that we're talking about here, we actually can claim that under all the learning programs under B-BBEE, so that one amount. So that would be your training cost and stipend. We cannot claim it under bursary because this is not a bursary, but we can again claim the same person under a person with disabilities because it is a person who is unemployed with a disability on a learnership. And then, of course, it's a learnership, so it would go towards our head count. So it counts towards the participants that we need to achieve. And if we absorb him at the end of the day, because we've planned that we're going to develop you with value throughout this learnership, whether or not we have a role at the end or not, but we're going to try and create a space where we actively know the skills you gain are those that are really essential to your CV for you to be absorbed, if not by us, by someone else, then we could still create the space where the absorption number can be achieved. And some organizations resolve themselves to actually forego some of the points, and because of budget restraints or because they know absorption is not going to happen. And that's also fine if that is a particular point of view, but there is a way that you could actually leverage the market to be able to partner and actually see the absorption point happen for your organization. If we look at the next example, this is Jill. She's a colored female who has a disability, and she's already permanently employed with us. And she's also been enrolled onto let's call it a red and yellow learnership that she's doing. Now, if we take into account that she is part of our current workforce, we're wanting to develop her. Maybe we're developing her in the marketing space or in leadership, wherever we see that her skills, and we've sat with her and we've really considered what the metrics are for her future development, what her individual development needs are, and our strategy, we can still claim her under B-BBEE for all the programs except for bursary, because again, this is not a bursary. We can still claim her under the learnership aspect if she does have her learning cost, if she has a disability, so her salary and so forth, all the costs that are encountered there. And that's not real cost, because if you do consider it, she's earning a salary anyway. So in terms of actual output spend as an organization, you wouldn't be you would be physically spending that money anyway because it's a salary, but you wouldn't be re-spending it under your BEE points. So it's actually, in a way, you're achieving two things at the same time. And then, of course, you would also achieve from a learnership perspective, but you won't gain the absorption point. So you would be collecting certain amounts, and it's about the balance. How many internal employees are we developing through different programs, whether that's all other programs or learnership, whatever that might be? How are we developing our internal talents? And yes, there may be parts where absorption can't take place, but then we balance that off with our new entrants to the workplace where we would be able to envision that. Our last example that I want to share with you is the one that's probably the most costly, which is around your bursary programs. But this is an important one because You have to develop new entrants to the market that are going to have skills, whether these are formal qualifications, BComs, and so forth. So here we've got an example of Jennifer. She doesn't have a disability, but she is completing her 3rd year at UCT, doing a BCom, and all of her bursary and costs you're wanting to cover. So you want to know, where can I place these? So you're looking at her education costs. Maybe she needs a new laptop, she needs her books. And you've even gone as far as to say, I'm going to create a space where vacation work can take place within my organization, because I'm really serious about developing the talent for my future. So you create a graduate program or a VAC work program, and an allowance is paid to her, and maybe even covering her accommodation. All of these would be then placed under the one bursary program value field there. And this is quite an expensive field. So people generally want to spend a lot more on the educational costs, and then they don't realize they actually can claim towards some of the other education costs like laptops and so forth within their plan. Supporting the bursary program beyond just the fees is a real value add to any organization. Really being able to develop a program that allows for young people to come into your organization, maybe work on a project that you've devised for that purpose, and show those outputs, is also value add to their CV, which they can add. It also creates a brand alignment where they know who's invested, and graduate loves to know, who am I aligned with in terms of the organization that is paying for my fees. When you get into real competitive markets, you could have graduates that have a couple of different offers from organizations, and if you look at the data with those graduates, they tend to align themselves to organizations that they see themselves working in the future. So the offer is beyond just investing right now in your education, but really, how can I leverage this opportunity to create, inform, develop, and hopefully one day absorb a bursary candidate within my organization? Or if anything, create a space where they have valuable input to their CV that they can take into the market, making them far more employable if they had not had that creation of space. So this is a little bit about where we want to future-proof. If I just recap in terms of what it is that's really important, is who is your skilled workforce beyond 2024? What does that look like? What are some of the technology trends? What is the creativity you're going to need? The innovation across teams? Are you geared for the next generation to come into your workforce and what they need and value, which is actually personal development and professional development, which is where this will lead into retention? Are you adaptive and integrating in your skills planning, where you are changing away from traditional forms of learning and running through the motions of compliance, and rather using those compliance factors as part of your strategies to really see impactful development across your organization, knowing that you have to gear yourself towards the development of your future in the organization? And the skills measurement for a learning culture, because never has there ever been a time where learning culture has been so important. The fight for skills, the fight and for the development of people is one that is always knocking every day, and it has driven the transformation of both learning and HR spaces. So consulting in that space with professionals around the learning needs and the gaps that your organization may have now that requires closing within the next 3 to 5 years is a really important space for your workforce to be in. We can look back in 5 years and say, we wish we had started today, or we can actually start today and be ready for the future and what the business will look like. It is going to be the difference between survival of the organizations. So I'm going to open up now in terms of questions. I don't know if there's any questions that have been raised in terms of the panel. If you would like to know more. Okay, so it seems we don't have anyone that wants to come online and ask any questions right now. So we will be providing all of our details as well. Sometimes people would like to say, well, you know, how does this translate to my particular organization, and how can I really understand from my own perspective, a context in my industry? So we're definitely open to that. And I would like to encourage you to reach out to us. You're welcome to reach out to myself, our business relationship management team. They're incredibly equipped to be able to help you and to personalize your space and for what your needs are. And I'm going to just thank you all for this and hand back to Nick. Thank you, Nick, for allowing me this opportunity, and I'll hand back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Tamryn. Really, really insightful session. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today. You'll see there's another poll question that's just come live on your Zoom screen. So if you have 30 seconds, please feel free to fill that out for us. So yeah, if there are no more questions, this is your last chance to pop one or two into the Q&A box. But while we wait for those, in the meantime, I want to say a really big thank you to Tamryn for taking us through these 3 simple steps to skills development. And once again, I'd encourage all of you here joining us there on the webinar, get in touch with our team at corporatetraining@redandyellow.co.za. Head to our website, to the tab for your business. You can get in touch with us there. We'd love to partner with you on any of your skills development needs, from bursaries to custom training programs and more. So lastly, a big thank you to everyone who has joined us today. Just to reiterate, the recording will be available. It'll be sent via email to your email address that you've registered with, as well as a copy of the slides with the incredible examples that Tamryn has taken us through. All right, thanks everyone, and thanks once again to Tamryn. We hope to see you for our next webinar.